So I wanted to do a recording of the ChatGPT training that I provided at Walton Verona High School and Middle School, in case you were not in attendance or would like to review what was presented. So this is all about ChatGPT, and we're talking about artificial intelligence coming to the classroom. And the first thing I want to talk about is what is ChatGPT? It's an artificial intelligence or AI, language processor that can accept input from the user in natural language. So, in other words, I don't have to be able to code to get a computer to respond to me. I can ask a question in my own natural language and it will process that and come up with a response. And it does create original output based on the vast stores of information that it has access to. It can write essays, create poems, write music, solve problems, compose a cover letter, write new recipes, and even code or debug its own software. ChatGPT version 3 is currently available, but 4 is on its way in 2023. So it's actually out now. At the time I gave this presentation, it was just about to roll out, and since then it has. And it was rumored to be exponentially better than the current version, and it really was. Um, Moving on, I put together some examples of what ChatGPT looks like, the output, so we could take a look at a few of those. So this is an example of I asked it to write a lesson plan to teach verbs. And I just copied and pasted what the output was. So it said, sure, here's a lesson plan to teach verbs. Title, Exploring Verbs, grade level, elementary, third and fourth. Here are the learning objectives. These are the materials I need. Here's the procedure, introduction, activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, conclusion, and assessment. And so it did that all on its own, just with that one simple prompt. Moving on to example number 2. Write a business plan for my online store where I will sell crafts and shirts. At our high school, we do have an entrepreneurial class, so I wanted to ask ChatGPT to write a business plan for me, which is a typical assignment they might be given in that class. And it did, with just that prompt, give me an executive summary, my company description, a market analysis, what products and services I am going to be making in my online business. My marketing and sales strategy, my management and personnel information, my financial plan, and then my conclusion. And it actually titled my online business for me, Crafty Creations. So again, it took about 30 seconds for it to write that. In the third example, I was just kind of being funny. I just asked it, could you write a poem about the wonderful life living in Walton, Kentucky? And it went and wrote, a nice little song here. And then I asked it to write a funny limerick about living in Walton, Kentucky, and it did that as well here. So it tries to be creative. Moving on to example number 3. Example number 4. And example number 4, I asked it to, I actually got this prompt from my son, who's a junior engineering major at UK. He was on a work team that was assigned this prompt right here: create an algorithm to insert a node into a binary search tree using doubly linked pointers using C++. And he and the 4 other people in his group worked for about a week, writing code, debugging it, getting it to work. And so I was just kind of curious to know, if I were to put this in ChatGPT, would it be able to accomplish the same thing? And it took less than a minute. It says, here's an example of an algorithm to insert a node into a binary search tree using doubly linked pointers in C++. And then it goes through and actually writes the code in the program. And the other thing I tried with this is I went in and made a couple of changes. And then I asked it to debug this code, and it actually found the changes that I had made. And then it gave me a little explanation of why this code would not work and how to fix it, which was pretty cool. Moving on to example number 5. Write an argumentative essay for 6th grade that says we should not have to learn math above basic math. And I basically, this spit out in about a minute, 30 seconds. It comes up with the introduction, body paragraph 1, 2, and 3, and conclusion. And on the next one, write an informational essay about the World Trade Center. So it wrote this essay for me. And so I asked it to investigate and discuss 3 British attempts to settle in North America in the 16th and early 17th century. What challenges did these early settlements encounter? And so it goes through and it talks about some different settlements and what challenges they encountered. And one of the things I wanted to show you by doing this is I looked at this output and I thought, well, gosh, I'm not really that smart, or maybe this is a little above my normal vocabulary. So I then prompted it. I said, hey, could you rewrite this as an eighth grade student? And so basically, it took this exact same information and put it into a more simplified text to pretend it was writing as an eighth grade student. So that's something that is very easy for it to do. You just reprompt it when you're done. The next one is create a writing prompt to assess my students' knowledge of symbolism in Romeo and Juliet. So now I'm acting as the teacher, using this to say, hey, like, what kind of prompt could I develop? So here's what it says. Write an essay analyzing the use of symbolism in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Choose at least 3 examples of symbols, et cetera, et cetera. Then I said, could you create 3 word problems to assess my students' understanding of Pythagorean theorem? And it came up with these 3 examples here. And then I said, write 4 sentences for my Spanish 1 students to translate. So it gives me the sentences, and then below that it gives me the answers, so I can use that in class. So this is how teachers could be using this as a good tool. And then last one I'm going to show you here is just another, this is a funny country song about life in Walton, Kentucky. So again, it does do some creative stuff, sometimes not perfectly, but it's kind of fun to look at. All right, so let's take a look. So here's an example of a prompt that I gave it that it did very well with. Discuss the legality of secession from the point of view of the Union and Confederacy. How did Southern and Northern understandings of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence differ? And how did these different perspectives shape the question of secession and of slaveholding? And so what I did, you'll see in this video here, is I just basically threw that prompt right into that little text box there. And you're going to see here it takes about 20 seconds before it starts composing its response. And then basically it just starts organizing and spitting out its answer to your question. And again, by default, it's going to use, pretty sophisticated language. So it goes on to say secession or the withdrawal of a state or territory from a federal union is a complex and controversial topic. And it goes on to basically write this really nice essay for me. And we're not going to watch that whole thing. But let me go to the next slide. There we go. Then ChatGPT can take any text and rewrite it as a student would at certain grade levels. And I already showed you an example of this back in the other slide, but I put in there rewrite as a freshman student. So that exact same thing about secession and slaveholding, it's going to review what it spit out up here, and then it's basically going to regenerate that as a freshman student. So here it's simplifying the language a little bit, so it doesn't sound so much like maybe a senior or a college student, and it puts it into kind of like high school freshman language. So very easy, very quick for them to use this to do this. So here's prompt number 2. Now this one is a better prompt, and I'll show you why. I asked one of our high school social studies teachers to give me a prompt that she uses in class. And in this case, she actually provides them original source documents that they have to read. And then this prompt is a reflection on that reading. So after reading through the background essay and the supporting documents, write an essay answering the following question. Did law enforcement violate DLK's Fourth Amendment rights when it used thermal imaging to obtain a warrant? Create a thesis and support your response with evidence from at least 2 documents. Also, address at least 1 counter argument. So let's take a look here. ChatGPT. I'm going to go ahead and paste this in. So ChatGPT, I copied and pasted the prompt directly in here. And you're going to see that it spits out what it tries to make a really good argument. But you're going to notice it's very lacking in details because it's going to say generic things like the source document. And it's going to say things like, here, let's take a look. So see where it says, according to the background essay, the Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches. So it doesn't actually have the original source documents. So you can kind of tell by the way this is written that they're kind of, fudging a response. So just wanted to show you how that does that. Oh, there we go. Let me go on to the next slide. Oh, go back up one. There we go. This is the prompt that we looked at earlier about C++. There's the video of me doing that. Through that. A surveyor wants to know the height of a skyscraper. He places his inclinometer on a tripod 1 meter from the ground at a distance of 50 meters from the skyscraper. He records an angle of elevation of 82 degrees. What is the height of the skyscraper? Give one answer. Give your answer to one decimal place. So I presented ChatGPT with this question, wondering, would it be able to reason out math questions? And you'll see here, I'm just going to skip forward. Here, it actually does go through and solve the problem for me. All right, example, this is a physics prompt, robot drifting downstream. One person is, remove this, swims 20 meters towards the shore and back, and another, leaving at the same time, swims upstream back to the boat. So this is a physics question. And so I put this into ChatGPT, and you'll see on there, it does go through. In the Michelson-Morley experiment, light is used to measure the speed of the Earth relative to the ether, which was believed at the time to be the medium through which light traveled. In the rowboat scenario, the two swimmers are each swimming in different directions relative to the current of the river, and it goes on and just gives them a really nice, thorough answer. All right. All right. So one thing I want to warn you about, so that you can then in turn warn your students about, is that one, ChatGPT lies. It flat out will just make stuff up. As a matter of fact, there was an interesting case of a law firm that worked for a media company, and when they submitted their briefs to the court, the opposing counsel asked them, it's a pretty niche legal area, media companies, and they had never seen any of these law cases that were cited in the legal brief, and the attorneys actually admitted that they had asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT just made up a bunch of case law that didn't actually exist. So it's really important to know that. One, it flat out lies, but two, it does express bias. So you have to remember that ChatGPT harvests information from the internet, which has a lot of bias and has a lot of social, religious, political agenda articles out there. So it can express bias. It can flat out make stuff up. So it really is important to be critical of what we pull from ChatGPT. So it's important that you know that, and it's important that your students know that. I did want to mention ChatGPT's companion, which is Dolly. DALL-E can take any description you give it. Example, photo of a beach with a seal and a crab in the sand drinking from a glass with an umbrella in it. And it will actually use its vast access to vast amounts of image data to generate original artwork that looks like an original photo, or painting or lithograph, line drawing, whatever. But it is not. It's actually just an AI generated. So I did a short video here. I'm going to pop through here real quickly. So I asked it to create a cubist painting of a mouse reading a book with a candle. And these are all AI generated. And I'm going to fast forward here just a little bit. I asked it to regenerate and do another example. I asked it for a painting of dancers in Paris, or an impressionist painting. I asked it for a photo of a toy soldier in a field. I hit generate. And while it's generating, you'll see examples of other prompts that people have put in and the artwork that resulted. But here it is. So these photos actually don't exist in the world, but the AI actually created them to look like photos. And I think on the next one, I asked for a pencil drawing of teddy bears shopping at a Korean market, and this is what it came up with. Let me fast forward here. So I asked photo of a monster under the bed. This is what it came up with. And then I asked it for digital art of a photo or a monster under the bed instead of a photo. So that's DALL-E, and that's another arm of OpenAI, which makes ChatGPT. Canva also has text to image features. And what you do is you have to go into the apps menu and find the text to image app, add it to Canva. So that's what I'm doing here. And then you can type in the description of what it is that you want a photo of, or a drawing of, or a painting of, and it will AI generate it for you, just like DALL-E, and you can put that into your Canva projects if you're using Canva. And let me just fast forward here a little bit. You can see there it's generating. There we go. So I asked for a digital art of a tractor in a field with balloons, I think it was. And this is what it came up with. And I can grab the one I want. It gives me 4 examples and I can use that in my project. All right. So I did want to mention, first of all, I wanted to mention one of the things that commonly will be asked, well, can we just block it? Can we just like not let students access it? And the answer is yes, but. So the but is you have to think about equity. So if I have 10 kids in my classroom and 5 of them are very low income, they don't have internet at home, they don't have devices at home, and 5 are middle and high income who have at least one device and pretty good internet at home. If I block ChatGPT at school, the 5 who don't have internet at home are now locked out of using it. So mission accomplished, right? But the problem is their 5 peers who go home to internet and devices then jump right on and do stuff in 2 seconds. The same project that would take the other kid several hours or 2 hours. So equity becomes an issue when you just kind of, that knee jerk reaction, well, let's just block it. It's really important to think about equity. And so I think the more responsible thing to do is to teach them how to use it responsibly and integrate it into the classroom rather than trying to banish it from the classroom so that only those with access to decent income have access to it, but those who don't. And I did want to mention that it's also not just one source. So here's a website called Futurepedia, and there are tons of AIs. So you almost would have to like every day that there are more things that get added to this. You'd almost have to stay on top of this and just keep blocking every single thing that comes up here. But it's like every single day there are more and more and more AI tools that keep showing up. So it's not a one and done where you just block one thing and you've taken care of it. There are tons of ways to get around it in other AIs. So just another thought to consider. Now, I did want to address some teacher strategies because it's not all gloom and doom. Some teacher strategies include things like there are a couple of AI detectors. Where you can paste text that students have turned in. The problem is they're a little bit iffy. They're not entirely reliable. I mean, it can be one maybe additional indication, like if your gut feeling is that this is probably plagiarism, and then you pop it in there and it also says that it's 99% sure it's AI, then maybe you pair that with if you're asking them to write through the drafting process and they don't have any drafts and it says it's AI and it doesn't look like they're writing. So then maybe you have a collection of evidence, but I wouldn't use it as the only way to accuse someone of cheating. But I do have some resources here that you can use to pop in and take a look at. Here's how that works, the AI detector. I'm going to show you here. All right, and I'm just going to stop that real quick and jump forward to here. So basically, I can paste that student work in here. And when I'm done, down here at the bottom, you're going to see here it says fake 99.36%, I think it is. So it does give you an indication. But I can tell you that there have been legitimately student written work that it seems to think is AI. So, grain of salt, it's one indicator, but definitely not the end all be all of determining if somebody has used AI or cheated. All right, so some strategies that also might help. Find ways to use it in helping your students to learn to think critically. Consider some small ways to embrace AI in your content area and start thinking of ways to build on what AI delivers. Have AI draft a response to a query, present it to your students, and then have them evaluate what AI came up with. What did it get right? Did it provide support? Is it on the right track? What did it get wrong? Again, they have to provide support for what it got wrong. And then I also have a Twitter thread here on this topic if you'd like to follow that link. All right, so moving on to the last part of the presentation, which is teacher tips for using ChatGPT. This part of the presentation will continue to evolve. So if you're accessing this link at some point in the future, there may be tools and slides in there that don't currently exist in this video. So let's talk about leveraging AI as a teacher. So obviously, the kids aren't the only ones who can use ChatGPT. As a teacher, these are some things that you could use it for. You could use it to generate exemplars. So if you're if you're about to do a writing assignment and you'd like to create some exemplars at different, writing levels, you could use ChatGPT to do that for you. You could use it to respond to an assignment prompt and then have students compare and contrast their own responses to what ChatGPT came up with. You could play games like Spot the Bot, where you post several student examples along with one generated by ChatGPT, and ask the students to actually see if they can tell which one was written by AI. Have them discuss in their groups why they picked the one that they selected as being, the bot. And this is all like top of the bloom stuff, like the really higher order thinking, because I have to think about, well, why did I think this was AI generated? Is it because the language was more complex? Was it because it was very well structured? Was it because it looks like other AI generated content I've seen? And actually defending that or discussing that within their groups is a really great way to look at writing. You can use it to generate writing prompts or problems. You can use it to write a lesson plan. You can use it to rewrite your own teaching materials to adjust for lower reading levels. So if you have content that you're going to hand out to students, you could put it into ChatGPT and ask it to rewrite it as a third grader, or rewrite it as a kindergartner, or rewrite it as a freshman. And so you could have it simplify language for some of your struggling readers. You can also use it to create summary notes and study guides for your course content. And I'm going to show you an AI tool in here that's really great for if you're using podcasts and videos in your classroom. It can generate a transcript for you of the entire video. It will summarize by points what the major ideas from the video were. So it'll actually timestamp it. So it'll say like at 1 minute, and it'll give a summary of what was said. And then at 1 minute, 30 seconds, this was said. And so it gives overall points from the video, and it timestamps them so that you can find them in the video to watch the original content from the video. So you can use it to summarize the content of YouTube video. Just talked about that. Have students analyze a piece written by ChatGPT, have them grade the response that ChatGPT created. So you hand them your rubric, then you hand them ChatGPT's response, and then sit down with the rubric and actually assess the writing. So part of learning really good writing is assessing other writing. So that would be something you could do as well. All right, so let's take a look at a sample word problem prompt for ChatGPT. So I said, so in the example I showed you before where I asked it to write some Spanish 1 sentences, that's just a pretty easy request. But I wanted to show you, you can get very nuanced in your requests with ChatGPT. So I put in there, write a set of 10 elapsed time word problems. The audience is second and third grade math students. The tone, I want to be lighthearted or silly. The output I want is 5 word problems that are at most 5 sentences long. I want them to include numbers for each problem, an answer to each problem. I would like for it to use diverse names, so not everybody is Joe and Sally. I want to include the Common Core state standards for elapsed time. I can include short directions at the beginning of the problem set, and problems should be written for children, just as a kind of a restating of that is for younger people. So there we go. So it comes up with my directions. It comes up with my questions and my answers. And I've used that prompt to a really good, thorough prompt to get exactly what I want from ChatGPT. All right, so when you are writing prompts in ChatGPT, these are best practices for teachers. To get the best output from ChatGPT, it's important to write clear and specific prompts. And here are a few things to keep in mind when writing your prompts in ChatGPT. Be specific about the task or question you want ChatGPT to answer. Provide context for the task if it's applicable. Use specific words and phrases to guide the output. For example, if you want it to generate a story that's humorous, you might include words like funny or laugh in the prompt. Use clear and simple language when writing the prompt. It's a powerful tool, but it can't read your mind. So just be simple and tell it what you need, but in the simplest terms possible. Be mindful of the age and skill level of your students. Keep in mind that ChatGPT's output may not be appropriate for young children or students with limited reading and writing skills. It may generate content that's way above their head. So again, going back to asking ChatGPT, if it spits something out that you like, but it's too complex, you can say rewrite as third grader or sixth grader or whatever. If you are planning on including names, you'll want to use placeholders instead of any student data. You don't want any personally identifiable information being put into ChatGPT because it does get recorded on a server somewhere. So just be aware of that. I have also seen examples where special ed teachers have used ChatGPT and similar AI tools to help them write IEP goals. So that can be helpful as well. All right, this is the section that will continue to evolve, AI tools for teachers. And so far, the ones I have listed in here are QuestionWell. So QuestionWell will take any document that you have, you copy and paste it in. It will create multiple choice questions for you automatically. It establishes what are considered the essential questions, and then it has the learning objectives down here at the bottom. To the right, it gives you the questions and the answers. And once it generates them, you can select the ones you like. You can come in and edit these. You can do anything you want in here. And then when you get it exactly the way you want it, you can go over here to the left and hit export, and you can actually export that directly into a Google form. And it does include the question, the multiple choice responses, and the correct answer in Google Forms. You can move it into Blooket, a Kahoot, quizzes. There's a lot of platforms that you can send stuff. This one has a free version that you do have to sign up using your Google account. And it also has a paid version, which you don't ever have to use. But I believe you get 500 credits to start with. So each time you generate one of these, you use one of your credits. So something to think about. So that's QuestionWell. Another one, this is just kind of a fun tool, but it could be used especially if a student is writing a piece and they need a specific picture to illustrate what's going on in the writing. They could go to Scribble Diffusion, and what they do is on their computer, they draw with like a line drawing here on the left, and then you write down it, like you type into the box, what is this supposed to be? A penguin standing in the snow. And so basically the AI takes what you drew, kind of the position of it, and creates an AI generated image that you could then use in your classwork. Likewise, this one was a palm tree in the sun on a beach. And you can see here that the AI generated that as best as it could, follows that same angle, even has that kind of bend right there, right where they have it in their drawing. So that's Scribble Diffusion. Here's a link directly to the website, and then here's a video on how to use it. In Canva, I already talked about this, but I just want to show it to you here. This was in the video I showed you earlier. This is just a screenshot. So this is text to image. You do have to go into this apps menu to see it or to find it. And then you just click on it to add it to your menu here. And then when you're here, you can type into this box here what it is you're looking for, and it will generate for you. And then you can choose one of those to put into your project or write another prompt and regenerate until you have what you need. There is an AI summarizer tool that I told you about. There it is. Here's the link to install it into Chrome. It's called WordTune Summarizer, or WordTune Read, and then it's the AI Summarizer. All right. This is an example of installing it. So you can see here, this is what the Chrome extension looks like. WordTune Read, AI-powered summary tool. So I'm going to click on play here. And I'm going to basically install it. I'm going to go to YouTube, search for a topic. Once YouTube launches, to the right, WordTune also launches. And you can see here that it goes through the video and basically gives you time-stamped summaries of every single thing that is said in the video. And so I could then copy this, paste it into a Google Doc, and give that to my students to have almost as like a video guide that they can refer to as they're watching the video, or even like take notes on. So that's what that looks like. And this is what it did. So here's the video that I played, and I just copied and pasted in here the summary notes that it created so that you could take a look at kind of what it looks like. You can watch that video if you'd like, and then you can kind of see what the AI did with the summary that it created and see if you think it did a pretty good job. But this would be great if you have students who are absent or struggling readers, or you just want to, have a guide for them to look at as they're watching the video. The next thing I wanted to refer you to was this citation for AI generated content. MLA has come up with an appropriate format for AI generated content to be cited. So again, this goes back to teaching kids to use this responsibly. So if you click here, it'll take you to the website. These are the guidelines, what it should include. So using the MLA template, these are the things. So for example, title of the source, describe what was generated by the AI tool. This may involve including information about the prompt in the title of source element if you have not done so in the text. So if I'm a student and I wrote a prompt to get this information, that prompt should be included in the MLA citation. And you can see here, it just goes through all of the, so this is the example they give you. They're in ChatGPT. Describe the symbolism of green light in the book, The Great Gatsby from F. Scott Fitzgerald. Here's what ChatGPT tells them. They paraphrased it. So while the green light in Great Gatsby might be said to chiefly symbolize four main things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, this is what the works cited entry would look like. This is the prompt. And that is how it is cited for works cited. And again, this is probably more just like 8th grade, maybe 7th, where we start to learn MLA citation, where they need to learn how to do that. And then if they're quoting directly, it shows them how to do that as well. So there's a link there that will walk you through that so that you can share that with your students. And just on a closing note here, this really is just the beginning of the conversation about AI in the classroom. Microsoft has already acquired rights to ChatGPT. They're integrating AI features in all of their platform. Google also has its own called Google Bard. So G Suite products will eventually have AI. Actually, I think it in beta testing already does. So it is coming. It's coming in everything. It's not just this website that they go to, and then if we block that website, it goes away. It will be integrated across the platform and almost all the digital tools that students would be using for content creation. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there was a really good quote that I've heard that I think is worth sharing. And it applies to teaching as well. What they said was AI will not replace employees, but employees who use AI will replace employees who do not. Because AI has so many features to automate and make more efficient and support more creative work. We anticipate that the job market for your kids when they leave high school will be very AI heavy, and understanding how to use it, but use it ethically and responsibly as far as fact checking and doing their due diligence on the information that's generated to make sure that it's accurate information. But then using AI as the jumping off point to then bring, more to it, that it should be a support. The other thing I wanted to mention is another content creator made a really good point about how, educators may freak out a little bit about AI coming to the classroom. But back in the day, there was a similar freak out when graphing calculators were introduced in the classroom. Oh, the kids aren't going to know math anymore. They're not going to know how to graph. They're not going to know how to do all of these things. But in reality, the calculator takes some of the heavy lifting off of the student, which then allows them to invest their time in other things. So in math. So think of it as a tool for productivity and a tool for creativity, and embrace it to some degree, and just try to get to understand kind of what it is and make sure your students are aware of like what is acceptable in the classroom. So I hope you find that helpful. And again, this slide deck will continue to evolve as I add more resources. Thank you so much.